The pistol that could do it all. Why was it hidden? Imagine this, the 90s. A country in a state of brutal crisis. Factories are shutting down, the army is crumbling, and in warehouses lie millions of units of old, but still lethal ammunition. And at this very moment, a group of geniuses in Tula creates a weapon that could solve a dozen problems at once. A chameleon weapon, a ghost weapon, a pistol that in a minute could transform from a standard Makarov into the legendary TT, and then into a European chambered for parabellum. Science fiction? No, this is reality. Its name is the OTs-27 Berdysh, and it is one of the most secret, most underrated, and most revolutionary pistols not only in Russia, but in the entire world. Why is no one shouting about it from every rooftop? Why wasn't it adopted by the entire army? Whom did it get in the way of? We will dissect this story down to the bone. And if you think you know everything about Russian weapons, get ready to be surprised in every single paragraph. I promise you discoveries you never even suspected. Subscribe to the Cultural Code channel. Here we uncover the most fascinating secrets of history and technology. And right away, write in the comments. Have you ever come across the Berdysh or, perhaps, heard legends about it? Part 1: The Time of Chaos. The historical stage where a ghost appeared. To understand the genius of the Berdysh, you need to breathe the air of that era. The 90s. The collapse of the USSR is not just a political event. It is the collapse of a giant, finely tuned defense industry system that had been running for decades. Thousands of factories that once worked like clockwork ended up in different countries. Supply chains collapsed. Defense funding was cut by many, if not tens of times. But there was another, less obvious yet monstrous problem: gigantic, uncountable stockpiles of old ammunition. Warehouses across the vast country held millions, if not billions, of cartridges, mainly of two calibers: the legendary 7.62 by 25 mm from the TT pistol and PPSH, and the more modern 9 by 18 mm from the Makarov pistol. And they lay there as dead weight. To throw them away was sacrilege and a huge cost for disposal. To store them further was expensive and risky. To use them, but with what? The old TTs and PMs were already becoming morally obsolete. It was at this moment, in the city arsenal of Tula, at the legendary TSKI-BSOO, Central Design and Research Bureau of Sporting and Hunting Weapons, which, despite its name, always worked on combat systems too, that titanic work began. The task, handed down from above as part of the Grach, Rook, R&D project, sounded ambitious and even a bit crazy: to create a new army pistol. But not just any pistol, a universal system. The project was led by two titans: Igor Stechkin, the very one whose name is borne by the legendary APS automatic pistol, and Boris Vladimirovich Avramov. These men were not just engineers. They were philosophers of the weapons craft. They thought not in terms of parts but concepts. Their first prototype, known as the PSA or TKB-0220, was a bold step into the future. Part 2. The Army says no. Why did the genius project fail at the finish line? The competition for a new army pistol was brutal. The young Russian army, undergoing reforms, was searching for an ideal. Requirements changed, budgets shrunk, and the Tula novelty had many competitors. And here we approach the first big conspiracy in this story. Why did the army refuse the Berdysh? Here is my opinion, based on analysis of many sources and the logic of those events. Military conservatism. The army is a very traditional structure. The idea of a transformer pistol might have seemed overly complex, toy-like, to them. A soldier and an officer need a weapon as simple and reliable as a hammer. A system with interchangeable barrels requires training, additional components, those very barrels and magazines, complicates logistics. What if a soldier loses a barrel? Such questions were likely asked in the offices. The economic factor. Implementing a fundamentally new system always entails huge upfront costs. You need to retool production, create new assembly lines, train arsenal workers. In conditions of a total money shortage, it was easier to either change nothing or choose something simpler and cheaper to produce. Incidentally, it was in those years that the long and tortuous path of the Yergin pistol PA began, which ultimately became the Army standard. Clan rivalry. The weapons industry has always been a battlefield of interests, Tula, Izhevsk, Kovrov. Each center had its own projects, its own lobbyists. It is possible that the Tula miracle simply lacked the administrative clout. So, the Army said, "Thanks, but no thanks." It would seem the story is over. The manuscript of a genius novel should have gone to the archives, gathered dust, and been forgotten forever. But then something incredible happens. Part 3, A Second Birth. How the Ministry of Internal Affairs saved a masterpiece and gave it a formidable name. While the Army was deliberating in another power structure, the Ministry of Internal Affairs, the situation was different but no less tense. The criminal 90s, the war against organized crime, equipping special forces and ordinary patrol officers. They needed modern, powerful, reliable weapons. And here, the idea of universality took on a new sound. Imagine an operative or a non-departmental security officer. At the unit base, stocks of ammunition of different calibers. An order is received for an operation in a region where TT caliber weapons might be in use. Or there is a need to interact with colleagues using parabellum. And in your holster is a Berdysh. You are not tied to one type of cartridge. You are a self-sufficient combat unit. This is not convenience, this is a colossal tactical advantage. The project was adopted for the needs of the Ministry of Internal Affairs. It was then that it received its official index, OTs-27, Oberzets TSKIB model number 27, and that legendary, perfectly descriptive nickname, Berdysh. Why Berdysh? A Berdysh is an ancient Russian weapon, an axe on a long handle, fearsome and universal. It could chop like an axe, stab like a spear, and be used as a rest for firing a musket. A universal soldier's tool. A perfect analogy for a transformer pistol, ready for any situation. This name is not just a nickname, it is a philosophy. Part 4, Anatomy of Genius. Dismantling the Berdysh down to the screws. Now, like real researchers, let's see what this phenomenon is made of. Pay attention to the details. Here lies the magic. 1. Steel and spirit. Reliability above all. The Berdish's frame and slide are made of high-strength steel. No compromise. This weapon had to work in any conditions. Dirt, frost after being dropped. Plastic grip panels reduced overall weight without sacrificing strength. This weapon was created not for parades, but for real service. 2. The recoil damper. Stechkin's quiet genius. The operation is based on a simple blowback system, a proven classic. But Stechkin, known for his care about shooting accuracy, remember his APS with its stock holster, introduced a brilliant improvement. In the lower part of the slide is a recoil damper. This is not just a small spring. It is a polyurethane core that dampens recoil energy, making it smoother. In practice, this means more comfortable shooting, less jumping of the barrel between shots, and consequently higher accuracy during rapid fire. This was a rare, almost jewel-like innovation for a mass-produced pistol of its time. 3. The eye of safety. A small but incredibly important detail, the loaded chamber indicator. When a cartridge is chambered, a small pin appears on the side of the slide. It is visible day and night and can be felt by touch. You always know exactly the state of your pistol. Safety thought through to the smallest detail. Part 5. The heart of the Berdysh. The magic of transformation. Changing caliber in a minute. And now, the most exciting part. That very 3-in-1 principle that makes the Berdysh unique. How does it work technically? Brilliantly simple. The pistol has a quick-change barrel. You remove the magazine, retract the slide, press the release, and extract the barrel. In its place, you insert another barrel for a different caliber, and insert the corresponding magazine. That's it. The pistol is ready to fire a different cartridge. The designers provided 3 paths, 9 by 18 millimeters, PM/PMM. The standard, the foundation, what they served with for decades. 9 by 19 millimeters parabellum, a window to the world. This is the NATO caliber, the caliber of special forces worldwide. With it, the Berdysh became an international player. 7.62 by 25 mm TT. A link to the past. The most economically advantageous move. Imagine, in Regional Ministry of Internal Affairs warehouses, mountains of cartridges from old TTs. There is no money to buy new weapons and new ammunition. But here, please, take the Berdysh and shoot the old, but still very powerful and high-velocity cartridge. This is a brilliant bridge between eras. Economic analysis. Why was this idea revolutionary? From an economic standpoint, this was an attempt to maximize returns on investments already made. The state spent colossal funds on producing billions of cartridges in Soviet times. The Berdysh allowed these frozen assets to be brought back into circulation. It reduced dependence on purchasing new ammunition and simplified supply in conditions of severed economic ties. This was a pistol for a time of austerity, for a time of survival. Alas, the system itself proved too innovative for mass adoption. Part 6. For the human. Ergonomics that were ahead of their time. Stechkin and Avramov designed a weapon not for a safe but for a hand. And you can feel it in every detail. The intellectual safety. An ambidextrous safety lever with 3 positions, an extremely rare thing for Russian pistols of that time. Besides the usual fire and safe, there was a position for safely decocking the hammer. Lower it, and the lever automatically returns to the safe position. It prevented accidental discharge during incomplete disassembly or inattention. Safety first. A sight for work. Simple but effective front and rear sights. And a surprise. Luminous dots. In the 90s, nowadays, glowing dots or fiber optics are the norm. Back then, this was a direct indication that the pistol was created for professionals who might work in low light. The trigger guard's secret. A cutout in the front of the guard with serrations. This is a rest for the support hand's index finger in a 2-handed grip. This detail, improving control, became common on sport and tactical pistols worldwide much later. Staggered stack. A magazine for 15 rounds of 9 mm and 18 rounds of 7.62. The cartridges are stacked in a staggered pattern, which allowed increasing capacity without making the grip excessively thick. Result: plus 5 rounds compared to a standard PM. That's 1/3 more firepower. The rail under the barrel. Yes, the Berdysh was born with a Picatinny rail or its early analog, for mounting a tactical light or laser aiming module. In an era when such bells and whistles were just beginning to be dreamt of in Russia. Part 7. Where is it now? The fate of the chosen and a museum piece. The Berdysh did not become as mass-produced as the PM. It became a weapon of the chosen, a symbol of status and trust. The Ministry of Internal Affairs and Okhrana. Starting in the year 2000, it began to be supplied to non-departmental security units and the FGUP Okhrana of the Russian National Guard. This is logical. For officers guarding important facilities, reliability and versatility were key. The prosecutor's office and the investigative committee. Since 2006, the Berdysh has officially been the standard-issue self-defense weapon for prosecutors and investigators. A solid, powerful, respectable weapon for respectable people whose service involves risk. Award weapon. Since December 2005, the Berdysh has been included in the list of award weapons. Receiving it for service to the state is a high honor. It is no longer just a tool, but an artifact, a sign of recognition. The museum, and perhaps the most symbolic specimen. If you want to touch a legend, go to Tula. In the famous Tula State Museum of Weapons in the modern halls, under glass lies specimen number 3, one of the very first. It is cold, gleaming, silent. It is a monument to a brilliant idea that was ahead of its time. Standing before it, you can't help but think, what if? Conclusion and the main takeaway. The lesson of the Berdysh. So why didn't the Berdysh conquer the world? Why did it remain a niche, albeit brilliant? Solution. My deep conclusion, based on this analysis, is this: the Berdysh is a victim of its time and its own genius. It was born in an era when the system, the army, industry, the economy, was too weak, too conservative, and too fragmented to accept such a bold, complex idea. It required a restructuring of thinking, logistics, production. And in the 90s and the aughts, all efforts went into simply preserving what existed. But its legacy is priceless. It proved that Russian gunsmiths are capable of revolutionary, decades-ahead concepts. It became a bridge between the great Soviet past and the search for a new Russian path. It showed that universality and adaptability are not whims, but necessities in an unstable world. The Berdysh is not a failure. It is a prophet who was not heard in time. So our investigation has come to an end. But the discussion is just beginning. What do you think? Is the idea of a modular pistol relevant today? Could the Berdysh have been a hit on the global market? Or perhaps you served with it or held one in your hands. Throw all your thoughts, memories, and hypotheses into the comments right now. Let's have a real brainstorming session under this post. And of course, if such deep dives into technological legends fire you up like they do me, like this post and subscribe to the Cultural Code channel. Ahead of us are dozens more such fascinating stories. Forgotten projects, secret weapons, technological breakthroughs, and intrigues that decided the outcomes of eras. Write, argue, suggest topics. Your engagement is the fuel for new mega research. See you in the comments and in the next releases.